Yeah, not to slow it down, just all one word. All right, so it's all right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is a great way for you to exit highly appreciated cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, primary homes, eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange so you can defer millions of dollars of tax so you can create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts, and each episode I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, crypto, business, and financial minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Connecticut, and he's on a mission to create an environment where there's freedom of information with all things, whether it be cryptocurrency, whether that be entrepreneurial freedom, and he's going to share with us free speech, right? On different, and he has a social media platform that he's going to share with us called, and you can find it at minds.com. But he's the founder of minds.com. Please welcome to the show with me, Bill Ottman. Bill, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, sure. Founder of Minds. We've been chugging along for about a decade now. I feel old, but I love it. I feel very, very grateful to be able to build a business and, be independent. I, love to talk about that kind of stuff, helping people achieve that, helping people achieve doing what they want to do and being independent. I think, we're seeing this emerge in the creator economy. This is what Minds is very focused on. We have a whole array of monetization tools for creators. We're trying to give creators more reach and rewards and really put creators first as opposed to last, is kind of how it seems big tech is approaching things. So yeah, we're trying to invert social media and put it back in the creators' hands. That's what I've been working on for like a long time now.
Amazing. We're going to talk about all about that, but I want to take one other step back, Bill. I want you to take us back to maybe the high school days or the earlier days. You see, I believe we've all been given certain gifts. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. And I believe these gifts have been given to you to be a blessing and help to others. So I'm curious, go back to those days when you were younger. What are the gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
I would say I have always had a willingness to talk about more difficult topics, not necessarily difficult, but just more, just deeper issues, whether social issues or existential issues or, whatnot. Just, me and in my group of friends, I was definitely more of kind of on the edge and, willing to talk about crazy stuff and wanting to go there and have those conversations. So that has aided me, very much so in kind of being willing to take more risks and stick to my principles along the way, even despite social pressure to, stay in a lane.
Love it. Those are great gifts. And I maybe sum it up like this, or summarize it. Willingness to talk about deeper issues, and willingness, and I would say even being brave to go where most will not go or want to step into some of the tougher, challenging conversations and ideas. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome, Bill. Well, let's dive right into the topic at hand, and we'll try to blend that theme of your strengths during the conversation here. So what's the number one secret to how to change minds with crypto? And by the way, just FYI for those who are listening to this is going to go in a couple different ways based upon what Bill just talked about a minute ago and based upon what he does. And maybe even, so talk about that and then blend also minds.com again and how it kind of connects.
Sure. So, at Minds, one of the pillars of our principles is free speech, free press, and really sticking to the First Amendment in terms of content policy. Obviously, we're seeing all kinds of financial channels getting banned on YouTube and Twitter. We're seeing all other types of cultural creators getting banned for just saying certain words. And this is just like completely unsustainable for global discourse. And so, yeah, I mean, we're trying to have hard conversations about all of, the hot topics that people are seeing, like the big trigger issues. It is possible to have these conversations and not get like super stressed out. We partnered with Daryl Davis, who some people may know. He's done some amazing TED Talks, and his life stories. He basically is a Black man who helped over 200 members of the KKK decide to leave. And he did this just by befriending them and talking to them. And so Daryl and I wrote a paper together with a number of PhDs called The Censorship Effect. Goes through decades of research and peer-reviewed studies on sort of how censorship can cause increased radicalization and polarization. And so when, whatever topic you want to talk about, whether you want to talk about Bitcoin, the economy, politics, like it doesn't matter the topic, but the strategy for for changing someone's mind about any topic is actually to sort of not try to change their mind. If you're talking to someone, trying to get them into crypto, or, certainly trying to get a KKK member to leave the KKK, you're not just going to preach to them. You have to listen to them. You have to make them feel like you're not. As soon as someone feels like they're trying to be convinced, you just want to walk away from the conversation. It's just a nightmare. So, there's a psychological reaction, this backfire effect that takes place when you try to do that. So you really need to approach from this place of compassion, being very, very open-minded, listening as much as possible. And then you try to start to get them to ask you questions, because, you sort of tease them with the knowledge that you have about certain topics. And it's a very delicate process.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm getting it. And I love it. So the goal should not be to change someone's mind. The goal should be really listen and understand where the people are coming from, empathize where they're coming from, right? Because everyone has a story, no matter how off it might be, like with something as sensitive as race and the KKK and what a story. I'd love to hear that story of his journey to help other people to ultimately change minds, but more so change heart, right? I mean, I think it's more than just the logical evidence and the thought process there. So how does by listening and empathizing, what have you found the secret to changing people's hearts? How does that connect here?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got out of college and went back home and was living with my parents for a year. And this was a decade ago, kind of when I was in the very early stages of thinking about starting Minds. And, I would just be ruthless with my dad. We would just argue. We were very much on not on the same page on a number of topics. And I was just pushing too hard. I was so opinionated about my various beliefs, and it just wasn't working. And so we just struggled for a number of years. But then, over time, I stopped pushing so hard, and he has ton of experience with technology. So he started helping with the formation of Minds, and just over time, and now we're basically on the same page on so many issues, from crypto to, political stuff, whatever. We're just so much more in resonance, and it totally just has to do with the approach, changing my approach, not pressing as hard, him doing the same way. And I think that, this is just it's one of the most valuable lessons that I ever learned in sort of dialogue with anybody, in persuasion and, pitching, if you're pitching your company, it's the same tactic, which is actually a non-tactic. It's actually don't try too hard, because that's the whole thirsty mentality.
Yeah, very well said, right? I read a book years ago called Crucial Conversations, and they talk about starting with heart, right? And the heart is get your own heart right, that you're doing whatever it is that you want, whatever the sensitive topic is, or whatever it is that you're interacting with somebody, make sure you're coming from the right state of mind, right? And you're not making any certain assumptions, and you're not forcing or pressing your opinion onto somebody, right? You want to start with your heart, and you're in the right space, right? And then yes, care and compassion and love. It's an approach of that. And yeah, you're right. If someone feels like they're persuading or pushing you so hard, that you're right. It's just the opposite effect. I remember growing up, and as guys, you learn to how to attract the opposite sex. Girls do too for the guys, right? And then there's something about this, the rhythm and pace of that, right? Where you're not pushing so hard. And we all have the friends who push really hard, or we learned at a young age not to push so hard because it's going to just do the opposite, right? So these are all intertwined with these things. And so I think that's so important. And then now we're in a society and a culture that intensifies these conversations, and it seems like our time has been squeezed, and then you mix that on with all of these challenges that we're having, and it's like the perfect storm, Bill. So just talk about how crucial these types of skills or being aware of these things are right now, given what we're going through with so many challenging things.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're at peak polarization really right now. Everything is a team sport. People are just defending their tribe at all costs and trying to slam the other side. And so, yeah, I mean, we consider this so important. We've even started a live event series. We're holding one at the Beacon Theater in New York City on June 25th. For anyone interested, you can check that out at festival.minds.com. We have Daryl, we have Cornell West, we have Coleman Hughes, Tim Pool. We have some crypto people. We're going to be talking, but we're going to be talking about an array of different topics, and really just having people from the left and the right have human conversations. It's there's definitely something to be said for face-to-face communication compared to social media communication. And I think that people who are so willing to just be nasty online are, when you're looking at someone's eyes, it's harder to justify that type of behavior. So yeah, that's something that we're really focused on.
Amazing. So now let's shift a little bit to the crypto side of things, right? And how maybe crypto can help with some of these things, right? We're seeing, and crypto's taking a big hit, some call it a great crash, right? Stuff like Luna going from $100 a coin to 0.0012 kind of thing, and Bitcoin down, drastically. So just talk about cryptocurrency, and for those that are maybe skeptical or cautious with investing in crypto, or the longevity of crypto, and how to have that discourse around that, Bill.
Yeah, I think about crypto much more so from a principal basis as opposed to an investment basis. I think that obviously, everybody would love, 10x of Bitcoin. But you have to look at the underlying technology and why are you investing in it? What if you think of it more as a vote for the type of world that you want and the type of economy that you want, as opposed to, just some shallow investment to get 10x, it completely changes your muscle for the volatility. The principles of Bitcoin, you own your keys, you are your own bank, sound money economics, no one can mess with it, decentralized governance and infrastructure, accountability, transparency, open source. This is an absolute requirement for humanity. It's not even negotiable. We have to have this as a new major component of the global financial system. And I think that there are only a very small number of crypto projects that even have, real decentralization and integrity. I like both Bitcoin and Ethereum. I don't want to get too much into kind of, this chain versus that chain conversation, but I think that, Bitcoin and Ethereum are certainly the two most decentralized, most established. They do actually have there's a lot of fighting between the communities, but generally the governance actually isn't that much different. It's more in the Bitcoin, the psychology of it is much more about not changing. And that's one of the best parts about Bitcoin, that, the peer-to-peer networking protocol and, the economics aren't changing. But in Ethereum, people really love innovation, and they want to play. They want to kind of push the boundaries. So I think having both, one that's more of like a creative, composable, creative technology, as opposed to the Bitcoin, which is just like the simple, understood, reliable, top dog. I think that, both of those are super valuable. So point being, it needs to be volatile. So if you're not ready for volatility, don't go there. But also, understand that the volatility is what gives it, the exciting potential to change the world. So, if you don't, if it cannot go up that much, if it can't go down that much. And so just be ready for it, and don't get in over your head, and don't think of it as, don't rely on it too much, but also like vote with your dollars. And it's the world that I want to see. I'm sick and tired of this, behind closed doors, secret financial manipulation. It's completely insane. So yeah, that's kind of where I come from.
Amazing, Bill. Well, you connect with Bill Ottman by going to minds.com. Yeah, I like the way you put that, right? You look at the underlying technology and what can it help to do? That could be like something like smart contracts for real estate deals, and clean title and escrow, and quickness of trading or moving currency versus having to sit in the wirehouses and fees and all of the things, becoming your own bank. Sound money economics, right? So governments can't just print trillions of dollars, right? And drive inflation, which is all-time highs. Open source transparency. I love all of that. So the counter, it's funny because I'm with you, Bill, and I'm with you. And I don't understand it all completely, but I would say I'm more on what you're saying, the way you've said it, than I am on the other side. At least I'm open to going to that point, right? But there are those that say, well, Bill, really bad people use this stuff to do things illegal and backchain and all these different things. So what would be the counter to that? Because it's like, yeah, really bad people can take guns and do really bad things, and really good people can take guns and protect people, right? So this idea that, the government is what is needed to control all of these things on such granular level, right? I mean, there's accountability, there's transparency here where we can at least see what's happening, right? And hold accountability. So talk about just that dynamic there, and the counter to bad people are doing, bad things with this thing, with Bitcoin.
It's way easier to launder fiat currency. I mean, blockchains are public, transparent ledgers. I mean, there's crazy surveillance that you can do on top of Bitcoin. And, there's companies like Chainalysis and whatnot that are coming out and providing that service. And they're, the governments are certainly involved in that. So people, obviously, it is possible to maintain anonymity on, when interfacing with crypto, but it's actually pretty hard to do. And you have to really know what you're doing in order to achieve that. So, I think that it's absolutely a balance. I'm not calling for, some sort, like, I think we absolutely, governments aren't going away. I don't think that's going to happen, nor should it. And they're going to work together. I mean, in the same way that, in the US, gold used to be, involved. It's less involved now, but gold isn't the US dollar, but yet, our currency was backed by gold. And so why couldn't it potentially be backed by something else? Like diversify the reserves. There's all different options. We're seeing companies putting crypto on the balance sheet. Mine's actually, we raised Series B round, we put like 25% of our balance sheet into Bitcoin and Ethereum. You're seeing Tesla doing it. You're seeing Square do it, MicroStrategy. And, it's not, the whole market is crashing right now. So actually, if you look at how crypto has hung in there, like, okay, yeah, there's certain like total disasters, like the UST Terra Luna situation that you mentioned, which you could talk about scams in crypto all day long. You can also talk about fiat financial scams all day long if you want. So, more so what we have to look at is this stuff has been around for like, a little more than 10 years in Bitcoin's situation, less so in Ethereum's situation. They're hanging in there amid this major global crash. I mean, that is incredible. I'm actually, it makes me more optimistic how much they're hanging in there.
No, I agree, Bill, and it's so important. It's the future, and it's happening. It's here that we're more educated and we know what it is and what it's not, and that's great. So we covered that. That's like that was the first secret, right? That's the first secret to how to change minds with crypto. Anything else that you would add that we should be asking we haven't asked so far with just cryptocurrency changing minds?
I mean, I think that experimentation and like, it's about going outside of your comfort zone a little bit in areas that if you think it's important thing for the world, like whether you're talking about crypto or you're talking about having, other sort of conversations that are, new viral kind of social hot topics. Like, if something in your heart is telling you to go there and get involved, go there and get involved in a way that isn't, risking your stability. But, I think that look at a topic. This is a fun topic. I mean, look at something like, UFOs. UFOs are, nothing is more fringe and crazy conspiracy stuff than UFOs. And for, half a century, that's been the situation. It still sort of is the situation. However, we just had last week, Congress held, the first public UFO hearing in half a century. And it was very serious. It's a very serious topic that the government is taking very seriously. And so it's and what could actually ultimately be, I'm agnostic to it. It probably is just government drones or something like that. But existentially, like, to be afraid to talk about that is sort of an absurd thing. It's like, but it's also totally understandable because, of the stigma. And I think the same applies to crypto. And, there's all sorts of, I love the meme. I don't know if you've seen it, where there's like all the urinals in a row and like the guy comes over from far away to like talk to you about Web3.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's really fun. Yeah. It's because everybody like has that friend who's just like their annoying friend about crypto. Who's just pushing it too hard. And you're like, dude, like even me, who's like obsessed with crypto, like when people talk, but that almost has nothing to do with crypto. It more so just has to do with the method of having a conversation and knowing the right place and right time.
Absolutely. And that's part of it. It's so new to so many people, right? And we just started our first, or we have three little mini Ethereum mines in our house, teaching the kids on how to get some passive cash flow, the technology behind it, what it is. They ask questions, we build them together. It's kind of like a hobby. And it's fun because we're using our house that's just sitting in the corner in a plug and it's going. And then I've got part of my family like, it's going to ruin the environment. It's going to take all the energy. And I'm like, there's some other things out there that are probably going to do that before my couple of my rigs here do that. But anyway, so it's a great topic to talk about, and I'm glad you could get some more of an in-depth part of how to talk about it, which is so important. It's not just talking about it, it's how we go about having this discourse, which is so important. So very cool. I want to shift a little bit here, Bill, and I want to touch on capital gains tax deferral. Now, this is kind of part of our show where we just talk about the biggest frustration when it comes to, in this scenario, I would say crypto millionaires or billionaires that want to exit but have this huge capital gains tax. In fact, we just had a deal we closed for a client. She bought Bitcoin for $30,000 to $50,000 at a very early adoption rate. She's working for a big tech company in California, and that $50,000 investment increased to $50 million. And so she never sold, and part of why she didn't sell was because of the capital gains tax. And so we help her to use what's called the Deferred Sales Trust, is what we offer, to exit, defer the tax when Bitcoin was at $54,000 a coin. And so she exited at 5 and deferred. Now, what's interesting is, within the next month and a half or so, it went up to as high as like 68, 69,000 a coin. So on one side, you're like, oh my gosh, she could have just stayed in and made more. But obviously now we see where crypto dropped. I don't know if it went to low as 20. I know it went to 25 at least. It's small. And so you're looking at, she was able to exit, defer the tax, and then invest into a business operation, tech company, retire from Google, diversify some of her wealth. She still has the other amount still growing in Bitcoin. But I'm just curious, what have you found the biggest frustration for those that are crypto millionaires that want to exit but are facing the tax?
Yeah, I think that there's not nearly enough clarity on what exactly is going on in terms of crypto taxes. I think, particularly for something with like, airdrops, for instance. People, from what I've heard, you are taxed at the price that the tokens are when you receive the airdrop. So you actually should sell at least like a quarter, if not half of it right away, because if they tank, then you would potentially be, you would owe the tax at the price that you received the airdrop. I would be curious if you've looked into and this applies to like staking rewards potentially as well. And there's starting to be some new lawsuits going on about that, but I'd be curious if you've looked into this topic.
Not on the airdrop side of it, Bill, but it's a good question. But maybe I can correlate it to how we've done these, because people ask, well, how do you do this tax defer without incurring the tax? Well, one thing we know we need to do is you don't sell the coin, you don't sell the asset to the open market, and either you even trade it, like ETH or a decentralized coin to ETH, or that's going to create a taxable event. Mm-hmm. And so whatever you bought, let's say in her scenario, she had bought Bitcoin and her all-in cost was about 50 grand. Right. It goes 50 million. Well, she never, nothing's traded, nothing's moved. She didn't transfer it to another coin. And so the way that we do it is we actually have her transfer the Bitcoin itself to a newly formed trust, but she doesn't receive any cash back. She gets what's called a promissory note. She's become the lender. And since she's the lender, everything's in a tax deferred state. And so, and then she. But
are you swapping it? Are you swapping it to something once it hits the trust?
No, so once it hits the trust, we just sell it to cash. And so here's why it works, because the trust bought it for $5 million or received it for $5 million, right? Received the transfer and immediately sold it to cash, for $5 million. Yep. But it bought and sold for the same price. So at the trust level, there's no gain, right? And at her level, there is a gain, but she hasn't received any of the down payment or any of the cash for it. She's in a deferral state, and that's how it works. She'll pay tax slowly as she receives payments. It's kind of like a 1031 exchange. It's kind of like an IRA, right? You don't pay tax until you start receiving the cash flow from it. And so what she's receiving the cash flow, and she'll pay the tax on right now. So that's all happening. But the key was we didn't change the nature of the coin to cash until it was already transferred to this new trust, and that's kind of the secret of what we do.
That's very
and then cool. rinse, wash, repeat. So my question and my answer for you for that would be the airdrop. I don't know if the airdrop is changing the characteristic of the capital moving to either a different coin and or being construed as going to USD or different. So if it is, and it sounds like it is, then that it can be a taxable event. But that's something I'd have to look into and look at on a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, it seems like I got to get a trust situation.
Yeah, we can help everyone out. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Bill, you ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. So knowing what you know now, Bill, if you can go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
25. Okay, so I'm mine has started. I'm living in New York City. I would say, you know, I shouldn't have sold my Bitcoin. Or actually, you know what I did? I paid my buddy half a Bitcoin to pay him back for a steak sandwich at dinner in like in 20, I want to say 14. So that was a $20,000, steak sandwich, but he kept it, which is the good news. So he's actually really excited. So I don't regret it because
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those cool stories. But, I think that for me, I was on to crypto and, Bitcoin in particular, hanging out at this place called the Bitcoin Center in New York City, which isn't really there anymore, but it was like, that people would go to the floor and do like, on the ground, like live trading. And it was like very like grassroots in the beginning of Bitcoin. And I was just so into it, but I didn't have my financial chops together. So like, I just didn't put my money into my philosophy when I could have, but I just didn't. And so I feel like what I would have changed is to just be more educated about investing, early on, and, understanding trusts and tax and macro, the whole environment, just because after college, everybody's capable of that learning curve. It's probably like a couple months of like devouring podcasts, but that's really all it is. And then you can get to ground zero and you can know what you're doing.
So well said. Yeah. And my buddy too was the New York Stock Exchange, and he remembers the guy with the Bitcoin sign out there, and like literally having a conversation with them. And he goes, $100, like it might've been outside of where you were at in this whole
It
thing.
probably was. This was right at the New York Stock Exchange. It was on right down the street.
Yeah.
Broad
And then,
Street. Yeah.
and we talk like every day. I think he had called me the day before. He's like, should I buy this thing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, and he was like, he sat there for like 30 or 40 minutes talking to this guy, totally enthralled. And like, it's like, well, I could just throw like $100 or $1,000, and of course didn't do it. Right. And he's just like, I like, there was something inside of him that said this could be the future, and he didn't do it. Anyways, all that being said, it could be a whole other podcast on that right alone, but let's ask two more questions. Number two, or second to last question, what are you most curious about right now, given just the state of where cryptocurrency's at, the business environments, everything else?
Yeah, I'm really curious if the Bitcoin ETF is going to get approved in July. I think that is, a huge deal for, just a tidal wave of institutional money to flow into the space. It seems as though the Grayscale application has a really good chance because they're already, they're an established fund. Like a lot of the ETFs that have gotten rejected, the spot ETFs that have been rejected so far have, not been established funds like with existing investors. And I just think that their legal team is totally on point and they really have a good case because, that they have, SEC already has approved multiple futures ETFs, which goes to show that they actually do have some confidence in the underlying asset. Like if you're approving futures ETFs under multiple different acts, I think, which has some meaning. I can't go into too many of the specifics, but anyway, that's a huge thing. And then obviously the Ethereum transition to proof of stake is a huge thing and really exciting. And at Minds, we're specifically trying to decentralize our infrastructure more. We've been really playing with this decentralized relay system called Noster, which, your identity is tied to your crypto address and you can subscribe to other people's crypto addresses. And so it's like people are too much obsessed with putting everything on the blockchain. So I think that in a lot, you hear about Web3, everybody's like, oh, everything's going to be on chain. And it's just like, you know what? Certain stuff, yes, you need a blockchain. But blockchains are also very slow and very expensive. And the idea of paying a transaction fee for, every social media post that you do is just like not necessarily where things are going. So what I would say is that I'm excited for all of the new distributed systems that are emerging that use crypto keys for signing posts and signing different attestations, because the signature is really cryptography is the basis of cryptocurrency. So it's really all about your public key and your private key. And when you're in signing transactions, that's where things are moving. So, I'm really psyched for more people to just get into that and become familiarized with like, oh, okay, I have, these handful of different public keys and private keys, and understanding key management and how that helps you become more sovereign, both in terms of your funds, potentially your content online. That's how I'm geeking out.
Bill, I love that you're geeking out, and I'm geeking out with you over here too, and I'm sure our audience as well, and hopefully you're digging all of this. Bill, we're out of time, so for those that want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, what's the best place, would you mind, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, find me at minds.com, minds.com. My username is Ottman, Ottman. You can also get the mobile apps at minds.com/mobile. Man, thanks for having me. It's a really great conversation. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely, Bill. Thanks so much. And I want to encourage you also keep using your willingness to talk about deeper issues, and also being brave enough to dive in to go where most people won't go, so that we can all, hopefully think better and more thoughtfully, and also solve challenges, because it's going to take those deep thinkers and leaders like yourself leading the way like that to help us do that. So I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit your millions of dollars of gains, maybe even billions of gains when it comes to cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, save a failed 1031 exchange, so you can diversify, create, and preserve more wealth, or help your friends, family, clients do the same. If you want to learn more about the Deferred Sales Trust and what we have to offer, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also have our mastermind every Friday. It's a Deferred Sales Trust masterclass, totally free. You can join and dive in with those that are learning about it for the first time, hear from past clients, hear from myself and my team members on how to execute your next Deferred Sales Trust transaction. And then, of course, check out the new book that's coming out. It's called Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy, and it's the proven playbook for unlocking your ideal wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or your clients. It's basically my story on the Deferred Sales Trust, and some others that are learning about it for the first time, those that are helping with the strategic alliances. We have some really smart people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, who's in the book. So check that out on Amazon in the next 30 days. Please rate, review, subscribe. Please share this with someone who can inspire today to have better dialogue with everything that we're thinking about.